A young university established by an Act of Parliament in 1966. The strength, energy, and reputation of Jawaharlal Nehru University result from the vision that ideas are a field for adventure, experimentation, and unceasing quest for betterment, and that diversity of opinions are the basis for intellectual exploration. JNU is the place for the intellectually restless, the insatiably curious, and the mentally rigorous, giving them the space to grow amidst the calmness of an oasis, a green lung within the hustle and bustle, and the crowds of the capital city of India. The following interview with the JNU Vice Chancellor is a part of an upcoming documentary series on JNU to be released in 2022. How has your experience been as the Vice Chancellor of JNU?
Well, it is a journey of learning because I have come from IIT Delhi to JNU, and before coming I knew that this university has done outstanding work in social sciences, humanities, international relations, and very good work, outstanding research in sciences. So when I came here, first I wanted to learn what are the strengths of this university, and based on which what academic structures can be incorporated within the university system to make it a world-class university. So that required a lot of thinking and learning about the existing system within JNU. Okay, so that was my first thought. But then, after you learn about the system, if you want to bring any change in the system, the stakeholders have to have confidence in those changes, that any reforms that you bring in the system, they should understand and trust that it is going to transform the way they work in the university, the way they will contribute to the growth of the university. So my second task was to convince the stakeholders. So it involved several processes, getting to know people, having speaking at a wavelength that they can also appreciate the changes that were planned to be brought into the university system. So the second part of my learning was this entire process, and then the third one, of course, is the actual implementation. Right? You have some ideas, now you have stakeholders who appreciate that those ideas are important, but then how do you implement them? So implementation requires a lot of administrative approvals both within the university and outside the university, raising the funds in order to create extra advanced research facilities in the university. So the third component was that. So the last 5 years has been a great learning experience for me, and in the process, through this journey, I met outstanding people in the university, and I recognized and appreciated the kind of contributions they are making to the welfare of our society, in particular India, right, Indian society. So it was a very, very pleasant and very enjoyable experience for me all through these 5 years.
JNU and IIT are two very different systems. What, in your experience, were the cross connections and the biggest challenges that came your way?
So when we want to do something, if you think in the normal way, we will think in a mind framework which is conditioned. So you would like to linearly extend things, but then that will not result in appreciable changes in any system. A linear thinking will not help. It has to be a very rapid, varying function of change. It should be maybe exponential, right? So it's huge changes had to be brought into the system if you want to see appreciable changes in any system, right? So therefore, it is not easy, it is definitely a challenging task, and typically in academic institutes, bringing a rapid change, a significant change will often be resisted, because both as faculty and students, because I myself am a faculty at IIT Delhi, we try to build a safety bubble around us, and we try to remain within that bubble. And then we also like to look at things which are in conformity with our own line of thinking. So when somebody suggests something which is not in line with in conformity with line of thinking, which will nudge you to come out of this safety bubble, then we will resist. The same thing happened here also. But what is surprising is that a large majority of the faculty, staff and students, they were consistently in support of the changes that we brought in our university functioning, and that is a very, very positive thing for me to see in the university. Of course, as I said, there will always be some resistance, but resistance coming from conditioned thinking is something that should not deter us from doing things which are good for the system. So we should have perseverance, we should have confidence and the ability to take risks, calculated risks, and that is the only way a system or an organization can succeed, or even an individual can succeed. Often we fail because of the fear of failure that we have in our mind. We fear that if some people are resisting, it may be difficult to do. But we have shown in the university that if we work together, and as long as we build efficient teams who are committed to this change, nothing will stop you, nothing can stop you from bringing changes in the system. And in that context, I think I have been very, very fortunate that there were so many faculty members here who joined different teams and then worked consistently and in a committed way, and that is the reason why we were able to bring changes in the university. So I would give all the credit to the teams which worked on various projects in the university to bring the changes. My role was just to be a catalyst. The real work was done by these teams. So I will always remain grateful to the individual faculty members who were part of these teams and helped us in realizing the dreams that we have set for ourselves.
JNU has initiated several reforms in your tenure. We now have a School of Management and the School of Engineering. A medical college is also in the folds. The Atal Incubation Center is prospering. Amid all of these life-altering changes, what would you count as a milestone achievement for JNU?
You see, any university has a long journey, right? Great universities are not built in a shorter duration of 10 years or 20 years. And our university has a great history of last 50 years, right? We just celebrated the 50th year of the formation of JNU. And whatever reforms and changes that we have brought in the university, we were able to do that only because JNU has certain strengths, and these strengths have been built over a period of time. And now, based on the strong foundation the university already has, now when we introduce some more changes there, to see the impact of that, we will have to wait maybe for next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So when we came up with these ideas and the changes in the university, our goal was not focused on any short term gain. Our focus is always on a long term gain, right? For example, if we have established the School of Engineering, it is quite possible that in next 10 years, some of them may turn out to be great entrepreneurs, And if they become great industrialists, they will always have the attachment to JNU. They may come back as an alumni to this university and contribute to the growth of the university, both in terms of providing intellectual inputs from a different angle because they are working in industry, and also providing even financial support to establish new programs, new research areas in the university. So, it will take some time for such things to happen. Similarly, when we started the Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management and Entrepreneurship, many of them are going to be great contributors to the societal growth. So, that is the reason why that it is difficult to say that a university has a milestone. A university has a long journey to traverse, and then it has several milestones to cross, and each milestone will bring certain change in the functioning and in the ability of the university to contribute. So, therefore, do not focus on single milestones and focus on the journey that you have set for yourself, and then as you are traversing the path, you will naturally cross many milestones.
How do we become self-sustainable as India's flagship liberal arts university?
There is one thing that is very clear in my mind, that the high quality education that we provide in our university should be easily accessible to students coming from any cross section of the society, whether they are students from a rural background, village or city, or high income group, low income group, everybody should have access to this. That means that the tuition fees that we charge to the students should be reasonable. Everybody should be able to pay those tuition fees. In JNU, our tuition fees are very low to make sure that our students have access to this high quality education. And the second thing is that in many universities, for example in Western universities, tuition fee is a dominant component of their university income. So, for us education is a fundamental right, and therefore tuition fee is something that we should not keep in our mind as a source of income. But there are other sources that we can tap. For example, if you want to establish new labs in up and coming areas, right, one way is to form teams, diverse teams coming from different schools, and apply for project funding to several agencies, government agencies which are already there, whether it is DST, DBT, and various ministries also give a lot of funding. So, right from 2016 we focused first on this component of government funding through sponsored research funding to improve the lab infrastructure within the university. And you will be pleasantly surprised to know that during last 5 years our sponsored research income has gone up by almost 4 times as compared to what we were getting in 2016, right. And this was mainly possible because we used the strengths of JNU, the intellectual capabilities of JNU, and put together teams from across disciplines, and these teams applied for the sponsored research funding. Today getting sponsored research funding has become highly competitive. So, the funding agency will see what is the expertise you have, whether you are able to form teams, whether you can in a sustained way come up with the desired outcomes of the project, right. So, all these things are looked at when the sponsoring agency funds these projects, and I am very glad to say that we have been quite successful in getting the projects. Very recently we have established a special center for systems medicine, and as part of that we are working on getting huge funding to the university so that state of the art labs can be established on university campus. So, this is one source. The other source, unlike IITs, because our university is mostly focused on social sciences, humanities and basic research, there was not enough industrial collaboration. But now in the coming years we will have significant such collaborations coming because we have School of Engineering, And then we also have lot of expertise in schools such as School of Computer and System Science, School of Computational and Integrative Sciences. So, there is a lot of potential to work in the area of communications, chip design, and energy, battery technology development. These are all areas which are very, very important for our country. And it is quite possible that we can have lot of industrial collaboration in the coming years, and this will be the third source of our income. And there is one important source of income that we need to still tap, that is the alumni contributions. So, we have formed an alumni endowment fund within the university. Of course, it will take some time for it to pick up. So, we have alumni in various domains, right, in different fields, but there are those in policy making, in government, in bureaucracy, and so on. We would like to see our alumni become great industrialists also, great entrepreneurs, and once that happens, I think our alumni contribution also will increase exponentially. So, we need to tap multiple sources of such resource mobilization, and that is the only way the future universities can survive, because if you depend too much on government funding, remember that government also has its plate full with so many challenges. So, expecting that government will fund all your research, I think that will not be a good pathway for us to choose if you want your university to become one of the best in the world, right. So, that is why we have been trying putting multiple efforts in raising the funds, and the results are there to see, and these results will get amplified as we move by.
An engagement with the private sector in a university like JNU is largely absent. Why do you think our universities are missing out on the private sector collaboration in social sciences?
I think for too long our university focused on basic research, whether it is social sciences or sciences, and definitely it is time for us to move from basic research to applied research, translational research, and even in social sciences there is a great scope to do that. For example, when we established the Special Center for Disaster Studies, you have experts from social sciences, you have from engineering, you have from sciences. So, when these unlike minds are put together, and disaster studies is such an area where even corporations can collaborate with us. So, that is the reason why we have established several new academic programs and schools and centers in this university, so that we will expand our domain of activities. So, for everything there is a time to happen, and now it is happening. So, I have a great expectation that the university will grow further in future and establish all such kind of corporate collaborations, private public partnership, all these things had to come. For example, when we approved yesterday in the academic council the establishment of School of Medical Sciences. Now, here is a great opportunity for us. The estimated cost is about 900 crore. So, can we sit together and work out a public private partnership to execute this project? So, we need to explore, and I am sure people have open mind now within the university, and also outside the university things are changing. Today we have the national education policy which emphasizes on holistic multidisciplinary education. JNU is right in the right path in implementing the national education policy, right. So, therefore, it is going to expand, it is not going to remain isolated from the rest of the university system. In fact, it will play a leading role in making sure that our university will become a comprehensive multidisciplinary university with wide ranging collaborations with government, with corporations. So, that is the dream that we have set for ourselves, and it will take years of consistent effort to realize these goals. Often we forget to realize that Indians are very, very innovative. You know, when you become innovative, imagine you are put in the middle of a desert, there are no resources, how will you survive, right? So, we are in a similar situation, because anything that we do is on a large scale, which in other parts of the country of the world, that is not the situation. Anything that we do, we have to do at a large scale, and then we have the limited resources, therefore, we are bound to be innovative. And this is something that often people overlook. The reason why we are able to grow as one of the fastest growing economies in the world today, the reason why we are able to, for example, in a shortest time able to vaccinate more than 50 crore of people in the country, is because we have that that kind of mindset, that you set a goal and then you work towards it in spite of whatever challenges that we have. So, that persistence, that perseverance is there, that is inbuilt in our Indian mindset. So, we need to make use of this and bring value to the system, right, and that is what innovation, because just having ideas is not enough. These ideas, you have to use these ideas to bring value to whatever you are doing, and I am sure Indians have proved that in the recent past, that how we can do. Any society, they can survive only if they have the ability to adapt, and that is why we are the oldest civilization in the world, and this is the only civilization which has continuity over a period of thousands of years. That is because the Indians have the ability to adapt to the changing situations. We are not a kind of a static system, we are a highly dynamic system, and that is the strength that we need to highlight, because see, if you want to achieve anything, first you must recognize what are your internal strengths, what is your internal potential. We need to keep remind ourselves, this is the potential I have. And the second one is to make use of this potential to the fullest possibility, and only then you can see the results on the ground.
JNU is known for nurturing the intellectual currencies of India since 1969. Some of the schools here are as old as 1949. What do you think are the principles and visions that JNU stands for?
One of the biggest strengths of JNU that I see is the diversity of thinking, right, and the ability to question established norms, right, and that is how new innovations take place. Even in science, if you simply accept something as a truth, then that is the end of any progress. But if you question that, then you are working at the boundaries of what is known. You are working in a fuzzy area, you are not satisfied with what is known, you are trying to explore, and that is what happens in JNU. You are constantly questioning each other's beliefs, you are constantly interrogating each other's thought processes. So, when you bring unlike thinking people together, and when you start questioning each other's, that is how new ideas are generated. Even Buddha said that do not believe anything even if I told you, right. First you experience, you question, you experience, and then you accept it. So, that is what I see as the biggest strength of JNU, and that is what I encourage in my own classes at IIT Delhi. I tell my students that do not accept what I am saying, you question me, and then only if you are convinced you accept. So, I think in our university we train our students in this process of questioning, which is essential for growth of new knowledge. That is the biggest strength of JNU.
Pandemic saw the incorporation of technology in pedagogies in JNU. Why is technology not more involved in the learning process here, considering IITs and even schools are moving towards a hybrid model of teaching and learning?
So, the use of technology in education is not a new concept. It has been there for maybe last 10 years, but it was limited. In limited circles that was being used. But then when the pandemic brought a sudden change the way we live, then we started looking around what is available to us, and that is already available. The digital technologies, mature digital technologies are already available. So, therefore, immediately we started using them in our educational systems. One remarkable thing in our country is that just as millions of people, they shifted without having a landline, they directly shifted to a mobile phone. I never had a landline in my life, I just only bought a mobile phone. So, there was a quantum jump even in educational institutes that we suddenly started using the digital technologies, and that brought some kind of uneasiness both among the students and the teachers. So, to overcome that, what we did in our university, we conducted dozens of webinars and training programs in making them aware how to use these digital technologies. Because often teachers think using these digital technologies in the classroom means using a PPT or using some simple doing some simple tasking in using this technology. But I think we need to come out of that mindset. We need to use technology as a tool to strengthen the activities that we are already doing in the classroom, whether it is a physical classroom or the online classroom, right. For example, in a classroom, a teacher does many intellectual activities such as proving a concept or explaining a concept or narrating a story, right. So, there are several things that intellectual activities that a teacher does, and then the teacher also does many helping activities to mentor the students so that they gain confidence in themselves both within the classroom and outside the classroom. So, basically these activities have to be strengthened using technology. In order to do that, we need to impart training to our teachers, and that is a component that is missing in our teacher training programs, and this is the right in using and also in changing their attitude towards the technology. That technology is just a tool and the outcomes will depend on how we use this tool. So, therefore, if the outcomes are bad, do not blame the tool, but rather focus on changing your own attitude on how you use this tool. So, towards that end, I think in JNU we have been quite successful in making use of the online tools and making sure that our educational processes continued without any disruption, whether it is lectures, whether it is evaluation and so on. But one thing that we consistently discussed with our faculty members is that the situation now is different, and if we have the same attitude that we have in a physical classroom, and if we want to be so strict with the students, whether it is in terms of submission of deadlines or whether in terms of providing resources to them and so on, we need to be more compassionate, we need to be more understanding. For example, some of the teachers, they insist the students saying that you have to turn on the video during the lectures. But if you insist on that, I know because I come from a village system, if I turn on, I may see clothes hanging on a wall there, I may see some utensils there, I may not like to expose all that, so I would like to close the video, right. So, we need to be therefore more compassionate and understanding to the students, and also because some people may not have ready availability of internet, right. So, in those cases, are you ready to give some extensions to the submission deadlines and so on. So, there are a whole gamut of things that we need to adopt in our own attitude towards education during these difficult times, and that is the only way we can motivate our students to continue with their education, because we cannot afford. Of course, there is another side of this. Some people say that Not everybody has access to internet, not everybody has these digital devices, access to digital devices, and that is a real problem. We cannot ignore that problem, but at the same time, while we make efforts to overcome those problems, we need to make use of the available resources so that the education and learning processes will continue. Otherwise, what is the alternative? The alternative is just to raise hands and say we will do nothing. And can we afford to do that? And can we bring such a sudden break in the learning process of the students? So therefore, we need to draw a kind of balance between what is available, what is not available, and be pragmatic and do what is possible so that the education is not interrupted, and that is what we are doing in JNU.
What, in your opinion, is the scope of technology in pedagogy? Teaching over the internet is now common. Where do we go from here?
There are 2 or 3 important reasons for this. One is the experiences through which the present generation teachers have gone through, and they mostly gone through an educational system in which only their memory was tested. They studied some standard textbooks, right? But today things have changed. There are many more resources that are available. And the second reason is this generation of teachers, they have not gone through experiences where interconnecting with each other, that there is an interconnected world which changes our own thought processes, right? They haven't experienced that, right? And number 3, most importantly, they have not worked in situations where working as a team is very, very important. So obviously, when their experiences are different and they are not matching with the expectations of the students who will be working in a future which is uncertain, there is a mismatch, and this mismatch can be bridged only if the teacher's attitude changes, and that attitude has to be changed and proper skills have to be provided to them through proper training. That is why national education policy, now there is a national training scheme that is going to be introduced in the system. So unless appropriate training is provided to the teachers, I think changes in the way the teaching learning processes will take place in the classroom will not happen. Let me give you one example that comes to my mind is that when a new faculty joins in the university, we automatically think that that person will become a great teacher. Just because he has finished his PhD from a great university, published some great papers, he will automatically turn out to be a great teacher. That is not true, right? And that person who joins, who is just beginning his teaching career, they have to be handheld, they have to be mentored properly so that they gain appropriate skills and meet the aspirations and expectations of the students. And national education policy gives a greater emphasis on that, and let us hope that in coming years, through appropriate design of these teacher training programs, things will change. Recently I was giving a lecture to the teachers, to the participants of NCERT, and also there is a National Council for Teacher Training, and I was talking to those people also, and some of these points I try to emphasize to them that the teacher training programs had to be appropriately designed, even including elements of philosophy. Today philosophy is an area that we have completely ignored in our educational system. Any student or teacher must know the elements of philosophy, because when you think about answers to the questions that philosophy generally raises, and when you do it consistently over a period of time, you build a set of values and identity for yourself, and that is what will decide how you interact with your students, whether compassionately or in a very strict way, or you work hard to meet the aspirations of the students. So all these things will be decided by the value set that we have within ourselves, right, and that can be changed only if philosophy is taught to all the teachers. So, proper digital technology training, proper philosophy training to change the attitude, all these things should be part of the entire the efforts that we are putting to improve the teaching learning processes inside the classroom. Okay.
Today, we are in a situation that even if you are a social science scholar, we need to incorporate advanced statistical and programming techniques of our language and other new tools that are emerging. If we don't have that transdisciplinary approach in our university, we become a disadvantage when we go into the world. Similarly, in IITs and in programs that are technical in nature and even MBAs, the element of philosophy is often ignored, and they are always on a deadline. They're always moving towards something, which causes depression and brings them to several mental health issues. When do you see the linear approach of academics changing in a world that's increasingly becoming dynamic and where the boundaries are blurring?
Let me give you a little bit of historical perspective to this rigid disciplinary boundaries. If you look at the early 19th century, for example, when a lot of innovations were being done, there was nothing like Department of Electrical Engineering, Department of Mechanical Engineering, or social sciences and things like that. Many physicists were actually doing electrical engineering work. Jagadesh Chandra Bose was a biologist and also an electrical engineer and also a physicist. There were no rigid boundaries in those times. The first time perhaps we heard about electrical engineering as a discipline was sometime in early 1950s, right. So, before that all boundaries were blurred, but now coming back to the present times, unless the boundaries of the disciplines become blurred, we will not be able to develop new technologies, right. So, therefore, people have recognized that there has to be cross disciplinary interaction among the various disciplines. I will give you a simple example. We have seen how during COVID-19 pandemic people try to develop mathematical models to predict the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, right. But unfortunately, most of these models were developed by molecular biologists. Molecular biologists have absolutely no idea about, for example, how different human clusters will respond to some government policies such as lockdown. Only a social scientist can tell, and a molecular biologist does not know how the vaccination may be resisted or may be adopted in different human clusters. Only a social scientist will tell. So, if you want to develop good accurate models in such situations, it is important that both social scientists and molecular biologists will work together, and people have recognized that today, and that is the reason why the national education policy also has emphasized on this multidisciplinary aspect of our education and research. But fortunately, what happened even few years before the national education policy was adopted, in JNU we were thinking in similar lines. So, when we established the School of Engineering, for example, we decided to start a world class engineering program, but a unique engineering program. So, we made it a dual degree program, and our students will have the opportunity not just to study the core engineering during the first 4 years, but in 5th year they will specialize in one of the areas of social sciences, international relations, humanities, languages, and our students are highly excited about this kind of combination. So, this is an experiment that we have already done in the country for the first time. And I can give you another example in basic sciences. So, we have started a 5-year dual degree program, BSc, MSc dual degree program in Ayurveda biology. Now, we have professors from School of Biotechnology, Molecular Medicine, Life Sciences sitting across the table with professors of School of Sanskrit and Indic Studies, and then running this program. So, this kind of across the discipline interaction is highly essential, and when universities such as JNU, which is a leading university, when it takes up such experiments, I am sure it will motivate many other universities in the country to come up with similar kind of multidisciplinary programs where the disciplinary boundaries are broken. And now to the other question that you said, if you are in international relations domain, but you at the same time you also want to have expertise, gain expertise in, let us say, data science, data analytics. Now the national education policy is providing all such opportunities. We have SWAYAM platform where a lot of courses are being provided to the aspiring students, and now we have the academic bank of credits. So I can actually attend many of these online courses, accumulate these credits, and then I can get a diploma or a certificate or even a degree in any domain that I would like to have. In any domain I would like to excel. So it is a possibility now. Now again, to see the results, to adopt all these things, to implement all these processes that we have identified in national education policy, it requires for the universities to be working in a self-propelled manner. They should not be waiting for somebody to nudge, either UGC or Ministry of Education to nudge them, you do this, you do that. We should be leading the pathway and then implement many of these things. So some people say, no, what about the funding? Actually, if you carefully look at all the policies that are there, all the changes that we want to bring in our educational system in the NEP, if you see, nearly 2/3 of them, they can be implemented without the need for any funds, because they only require attitudinal change. It requires a training within the organizations, in the learning, teaching, learning processes, in the administration, in the governance and so on. All these things can be done. So let us wait and see as the NEP is rolled out. I am sure there is a bright future for our educational system. Biologist wants to take some maths courses, or an engineering student wants to take a financial maths course. So this kind of opportunities should be created within the university system.
How do you handle challenges that come in the administration of a university like JNU, which is figuratively one of a kind?
See, when I was at IIT, right, every morning after I finish my lecture from 8 to 9, the first student will come and he will pose a question, and we both sit and start thinking about the question. It is a very challenging question. So my first thought was, whenever I face such a challenge, is that I must find a solution to this. I should not give up. That is the first thought that comes in my mind, right. So in a place like a university, it is not an individual research problem that you are solving. Here, once you make such a decision that I must find a solution to this, I should not raise my hands and say that it cannot be solved. Once you make that resolution in your mind, the next step is, how do you find the solution? If you want to find a solution on your own, because we are all human beings, there is every possibility that sometimes we can commit a mistake. We can make a wrong judgment and commit an error. So therefore, the next step that I do is consult my team, talk to them, and since you have not seen, I am telling in the team, I always used to tell my team, see, I am suggesting something, but you counter that, do not agree to my suggestion, come up with your own counter suggestion. So there is cross talking and discussions, and ultimately a solution will emerge, and we go ahead and implement, irrespective of what kind of resistance that comes, because this solution is a result of the critical thinking that has taken place in the heads of so many people in the team. So therefore, I am absolutely confident that the possibility of committing errors in such a situation is very, very less. Therefore, I go ahead and implement that. So this is how I tackle whenever I face the challenges.
Do you have a message for the outside world that looks at JNU like a fortress?
I have been saying this right from beginning, since the time I have joined in 2016, that university, as a university, we should be left alone for us to function. It is better if nobody interferes with our functioning, and people should have confidence and trust in our university that when we train our students, they will go out of this university and become effective vehicles of social, economic and cultural transformation of the society. So, I would like people to have that kind of confidence in our university, for the simple reason that this university has stood on its ground during last 50 years, and in the coming 50 years I am very confident that it will build on these strengths and many more reforms will be brought into the university, and it will become one of the top universities in the world. That is my belief.